Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Claverings. We are reading Anthony Trollope's novel, The Claverings, and we are up to, let us see, chapter 10, where we have a wedding to go to. A Claverling wedding to go to. Unfortunately, it's not going to be it's not going to be any more perfectly happy than the last wedding that we saw, but we'll see. We'll see if we can get through it. This is a chapter called Florence Burton at the Rectory, because Harry Clavering's intended Florence Burton is going to the Clavering Rectory in order to be one of the maids in waiting to Harry's sister when she gets married. But first, you have to get there. Harry Clavering went down to Stratton, slept one night at old Mr. Burton's house, and drove Florence over to Clavering, 20 miles across the country, on the following day. This journey together had been looked forward to with great delight by both of them, and Florence, in spite of the snubbing which she had received from her lover because of her prudence, was very happy as she seated herself alongside him in the vehicle which had been sent over from the Rectory, and which he called a trap. Not a word had as yet been said between them as to that snubbing, nor was Harry minded that anything should be said. The snubbing in question here is that Florence sent Harry a long letter, which we got in full, saying basically saying we don't have enough money to marry on. I know you want to marry right away, but I think we should wait a year, maybe 2 years, until you have greater standing in the world, and so that we're not living desperately hand to mouth. We don't have enough money to live on in London, and your business is centered in London, or will be. And Harry didn't like that at all. And when he wrote back, because you in the old snail mail days, if you send a letter, you are owed a letter. He made almost no mention at all about the snubbing letter. Talked about other things. In order to rub her face in the fact that he was not even going to condescend to address the subject. He meant to carry on his revenge by being dumb on that subject. But such was not Florence's intention. She desired not only to have her own way in this matter, but desired also that he should assent to her arrangements. It was a charming day for such a journey. It was cold, but not cold enough to make them uncomfortable. There was a wind, but not wind enough to torment them. Once there came on a little shower, which just sufficed to give Harry an opportunity for wrapping his companion very closely, but he hardly completed this ceremony before the necessity for it was over. They both agreed that this mode of traveling was infinitely preferable to a journey by railroad, and I myself should be of the same opinion if one could always make one's journey under the same circumstances. I might point out that there's a third person involved here, and the horse is not doing it voluntarily, and certainly would prefer that you take the train. And it must be understood that Harry, though no doubt he was still taking his revenge on Florence by abstaining from all allusion to her letter, was not disposed to make himself otherwise disagreeable. He played his part of the lover very well, and Florence was supremely happy. "Harry," she said, when the journey was more than half completed, "you never told me what you thought of my letter." "What letter?" But he knew very well what letter was in question. "My prudent letter. The letter written in answer to yours that was very imprudent. I thought there was nothing more to be said about it." "Oh, come, Harry, don't let there be a subject between us that we don't dare think about or discuss. I know what you meant by not answering me. You meant to punish me, did you not, for having an opinion different from yours? Is that not true?" "Punish you? No, I did not want to punish you. It was that I thought I was punished, I think." "But you know I was right. Was I right?" "I think you were wrong, but I don't want to say anything more about it now." "Ah, but Harry, I want you to talk about it. Is it not everything to me, everything in this world, that you and I should agree about this? I have nothing else to think of but you. I have nothing to hope for but that I may live to be your wife. My only care in the world is my care for you. Come, Harry, don't be glum with me." I would probably jump out of the trap at this point. "I am not glum. Speak a nice word to me. Tell me that you believe me when I say that this is not of myself that I'm thinking of, but you." "Why can't you let me think of myself in this?" "Because you have got to think for me. And I think you do very well on the income we've got. If you'll consent to marry this summer, I won't be glum, as you call it, a moment longer." "No, Harry, I must not do that. I should be false to my duty to you if I did." "Then it's no use saying anything more about it." "Look here, Harry, if an engagement for 2 years is tedious to you—" "Of course it's tedious. Is not waiting for anything always tedious? There's nothing I hate so much as waiting." "But listen to me," she said gravely. "If it is too tedious, if it is more than you think you can bear without being unhappy, I shall release you from your engagement." "Florence!" "Hear me to the end. It will make no change in me, and then if you will come to me again at the end of 2 years, you may be sure in what way I will receive you. And what good would that do? Simply this good, that you would not be bound in a manner that makes you unhappy. If you did not intend that when you asked me to be your wife, oh, Harry, all that I want is to make you happy. That is all I care for. That's all I think about. You should be careful, Flo. If you release him from his engagement promise, what happens if he takes up with another woman in that time? Maybe a woman who's fabulously wealthy. So he doesn't need to worry about making more money on his own. Where would you be then? You formally released him. You would have no grounds to complain. Could there be such a woman? Harry swore to her with 10,000 oaths that he would not release her from any part of her engagement with him, and that he would give no loophole for escape from him, as he intended to hold her so firmly that if she divided herself from him, she should be accounted among the women of paragon of falseness. He was ready, he said, to marry her tomorrow. This was his wish, his idea of what would be best for both of them, and after that, if not tomorrow, then on the next day, and so till the day should come on which she would consent to be his wife. He went on also to say that he should continue to torment her on the subject about once a week till he had induced her to give way, and then he quoted a Latin line to show that a constant dropping of water will hollow out a stone. By random chance. That particular Latin line, it's not, this old Dover edition doesn't have any notes, but there can be only one line that was that, and it is, by random chance, my own personal motto, Cura cavet lapidem. And I believe you should all have a personal motto in Latin. This was somewhat at variance with the declaration he had made to Mrs. Burton in Onslow Crescent, to the effect that he would never speak to Florence again on the subject. But then men do occasionally change their minds, and Harry Clavering was a man who often changed his. Florence, as he made the declaration above described, thought he had played his part of a lover very well, and drew herself a little closer to him as she thanked him for his warmth. Dear Harry, you are so good and so kind, and I do love you so truly. Again, jump out of the trap. Just leap onto the road. Let the horse take her wherever it will. In this way, the journey was made very pleasantly, and when Florence was driven up to the rectory door, she was quite contented with her coachman. Harry Clavering, who is the hero of our story, will not, I fear, have hitherto presented himself to the reader as having much of the heroic nature in his character. Well, he didn't present himself to us, Tony. You presented him to us, and you have described him as a feckless, snobby little boy. It will perhaps be complained of him that he is fickle, vain, easily led, and almost as easily led to evil as to good. But it should be remembered that hitherto he has been rather hardly dealt with in these pages, and that his faults and weaknesses have been exposed almost unfairly. That he had such faults and was subject to such weaknesses may be believed of him, but there may be a question whether as much evil would not be known of most men. Let them be heroes or not be heroes, if their characters were, so to say, turned inside out before our very eyes. Harry Clavering, fellow of his college, 6 feet high, with a handsome face and person, with plenty to say for himself on all subjects, was esteemed highly, and regarded much by those who knew him, in spite of those little foibles which marred his character, and I must beg the reader to take the world's opinion about him, and not estimate him too meanly thus in the history of his adventures. It's a very neat little weird quasi-fictional folding and upon folding that's going on here. The world doesn't have an opinion of Harry Clavering, because he's not a real person. The world in the novel has an opinion of him, but we're not characters in a novel. We're people, and we have an opinion of him only through what we've been shown in the novel. Anyway, if this tale should ever be read by any lady who, in the course of her career, has entered a house under circumstances similar to those in which had brought Florence Burton to Clavering Rectory, she will immediately understand how anxious must have been that young lady when she encountered the whole Clavering family in the hall. She had been blown about by the wind, and her cloaks and shawls were heavy on her, and her hat was a little out of shape, from some fault on the part of Harry, as I believe, and she felt herself to be as dowdy as she appeared to them. What would they think of her, and what would they think of Harry, in that he had chosen such a one to be his wife? Mrs. Clavering had kissed her before she had seen the lady's face, and Mary and Fanny had kissed her before she knew what she was about. And then a stout clerical gentleman kissed her whom, no doubt, was Mr. Clavering senior. After that, another clerical gentleman, very much younger and very much slighter, took hands with her. He might have kissed her, too, had he been so minded, for Florence was too confused to be capable of making any exact reckoning in the matter. He might have done so, that is, as far as Florence was concerned. It may be a question whether Mary Clavering would have objected, For this clerical gentleman was the Reverend Edward Fielding, who was now to become her husband in 3 days' time. Basically, what Trollope is alluding to here is that in the old days, when travel wasn't instantaneous, when you didn't get on a magic plane, and if you didn't die, you were in your destination in an hour, and you could sleep the whole time, that once upon a time, travel by bus and train dishevels you. You're not at your best the minute you get off the conveyance, much less by horse. Now, Florence, said Fanny, come upstairs into Mamma's room and have some tea, and we'll look at you. Harry, you needn't come. You've had her to yourself for quite a long time. You can have her again in the evening. Florence, in this way, was taken upstairs and found herself seated by the fire, while 3 pairs of hands were taking from her shawls, her hat, her cloak, almost before she knew where she was. It's so odd to have you here, said Fanny. We have only one brother, so of course we shall all make very much of you. Isn't she nice, Mamma? I'm sure she is, very nice, but I shouldn't have told her so before her face if you hadn't asked the question. That's nonsense, Mamma. You mustn't believe Mamma when she pretends to be grand and sententious. It's only put on as a sort of company air. We don't mean to make company of you. You'll be one of the family, like Harry was welcomed at the Burton house. Pray don't, said Florence. I'm so glad you are just come at this time, said Mary. I think so much of having Harry's future wife at my wedding. I wish we were both going to be married on the same day. But we are not to be married for ever so long, said Florence. 2 years hence it should be the shortest time named. Don't be sure of that, Florence, said Fanny. We have all of us received a special commission from Harry to talk you out of that heresy. Have we not, Mamma? I think you had better not tease Florence about that immediately on her arrival. It's hardly fair. This is Mrs. Clavering. Then, when they had drunk their tea, Florence was taken away to her own room. Before she was allowed to go downstairs, she was intimate with both girls, and had so far overcome her awe of Harry's mother as to be able to answer her without confusion. Well, sir, what do you think of her? Said Harry to his father as soon as they were alone. I have not yet had time to think much about her. She seems to be very pretty. She isn't as tall as I thought she'd be. No, she's not tall, said Harry in a voice of disappointment. Julia is tall. I've no doubt we will like her very much. What money is she to have? 100 a year while her father lives. That's not much. Much or little, it made no difference to me. I should never have thought of marrying a girl for her money. It's a kind of thing that I hate. I almost wish she had nothing. Well, she's got 100 a year. It's not quite 60,000, but still. I shouldn't refuse if I were you. Don't refuse the 100 a year, even if it's small. Of course I shan't refuse it, but what I mean is that I never thought about it when I asked her to have me. I shouldn't have been a bit more likely to ask her if she'd had 10 times as much. Or 60 times as much. A fortune with one's wife isn't a bad thing for a poor man, Harry. But a poor man must be poor in more senses than one, would he look about for a fortune in that way. I suppose you won't marry just yet, said the father. Including everything, you would not have 500 a year, and that would be very close work in London. It's not quite decided yet, sir. As far as I'm concerned, I think that people are a great deal too prudent about money. I believe I could live as a married man on 100 a year if I had no more. And as for London, I don't see why London should be more expensive than any other place. You can get exactly what you want in London and make your halfpence go farther there than anywhere else. And your sovereigns go quicker, said the father. All that I wanted, said Harry, is the will to live on your income, and a little firmness in carrying out your plans. Harry thinks you can be poor and virtuous in London. We've only read one Trollope novel out loud like this, but frequently in Trollope it is demonstrated that you cannot do that. But especially not if you have Harry's taste, as his father knows perfectly well. The rector of Clavering, as he heard all this wisdom fall from his son's lips, looked at Harry's expensive clothes, the ring on his finger, the gold chain at his waistcoat, the studs at his shirt, and smiled gently. He was by no means so clever a man as his son, but he knew something much of the world, though was not much given to general reading. He had read his son's character. A great deal of firmness and fortitude also is wanted for that kind of life, he said. There are men who can go through it without suffering, but I would not advise any young man to commence it in a hurry. If I were you, I should wait a year or two. Come, let's have a walk. That is, if you can tear yourself away from your lady love for an hour. If there is not Saul coming up the avenue, take your hat, Harry, and we'll go out the other way. He only wants to see the girls about the school, but if he catches us, we'll be with him for an hour. This is the Reverend Mr. Saul. who is extremely pious and who basically runs the whole of the curacy. He is a curate under the rector, but he basically runs the show. And most recently got a chapter to himself in the novel because he unexpectedly proposed to one of Harry's sisters. And when she said, "It cannot possibly be," he said, "Well, don't let this change anything. It won't change anything. You've told me no, I will drop the subject." Then Harry asked about Mr. Saul's love affairs. That's what he wants to know. "I've not heard one single word about it since you went away," said the rector. "It seems to have passed off like a dream. He and Fanny go on the same as ever, and I suppose he knows that he has made a fool of himself." But in this matter the rector of Clavering was mistaken. Mr. Saul did not by any means think that he had made a fool of himself. "He has never spoken a word to me since," said Fanny to her brother that evening. "That is, not a word as to what occurred then. Of course it's very embarrassing at first, though I don't think he minded it much. He came after a day or two just the same as ever, and he almost made me think that he had forgotten it." "And he wasn't confused?" "Not at all. He never is. The only difference is I think he scolds me more than he used to do." "Scolds you?" "Oh dear, yes. He always scolds me if he thought that I did anything wrong, especially about giving the children holidays. But he does it now more than ever." "And how do you bear it?" "In a half and half sort of way. I laugh at him, and then I do as I'm bid. He makes everybody do what he bids at Clavering, except Papa sometimes. But he scolds him too. I heard him the other day in the library." "And did my father take it from him?" "He did, in a sort of way. I don't think Papa likes him, but then we all know that he is so good. He never spares himself anything. He has nothing but his curacy, but what he gives away is wonderful. So he has barely anything to live on. Probably just £100 a year, £150 a year, but he's still extremely charitable." "And I hope he won't take to scolding me," said Harry proudly. "As you don't concern yourself about the parish, I should say that you're safe. I suppose he thinks Mamma does everything right, for he never scolds her." "There's no talk of his going away." "None at all. I think we should all be very sorry because he does so much." Florence reigned supreme in the estimation of the Rectory family all the evening of her arrival till after breakfast the next morning. But then the bride-elect was restored to her natural preeminence. This, however, lasted only for 2 days, after which the bride was taken away. The wedding was very nice and pretty and comfortable, and the people of Clavering were much better satisfied with it than they had been with the other marriage which had been mentioned as having been celebrated in Clavering Church. The Rectory family was generally popular, and everybody wished well to the daughter who was to be taken away. When they were gone, there was a breakfast at the Rectory, and speeches were made with much volubility. On such an occasion the rector was a great man, and Harry also shone in conspicuous rivalry with his father. But Mr. Saul's spirit was not so well tuned to the occasion as that of the rector or his son, and when he got upon his legs and mournfully expressed a hope that his friend Mr. Fielding might be enabled to bear the trials of this life with fortitude, it was felt by all of them that the speaker had better be brought to an end. Mr. Saul is not cut out for festive occasions. "You shouldn't laugh at him, Harry," Fanny said to her brother afterwards, almost seriously. "One man can do one thing and one another. You can make a speech better than he can, but I don't think you could preach so good a sermon." "I declare, I think you're getting fond of him after all," said Harry. Upon hearing this, Fanny turned away with a look of great offence. "No one but a brother," said she, "would say such a thing as that to me, because I don't like to hear the poor man ridiculed without cause." That evening, when they were alone, Fanny told Florence the whole story about Mr. Saul. "I tell you, you know, because you're like one of ourselves. You're like one of ourselves now. It has never been mentioned to anyone out of the family." Florence declared that the story would be sacred with her. "I'm sure of that, dear, and therefore I like you to know it. Of course, such a thing was quite out of the question. The poor fellow has no means at all, literally none. And then, independently of that—" "I don't think that I should ever bring myself to think of that as the first thing," said Florence. "No, nor would I. If I were really attached to a man, I think I should tell him so, and agree to wait, either with hope or without it." "Just so, Fanny." That's what Florence has done, after all. But there was nothing of that kind. Indeed, he's the sort of man no girl could think of being in love with. Isn't he? You see, he will hardly take the trouble to dress himself decently. "I have only seen him at the wedding, you know," said Florence. "Oh, as for him, and for him he was quite bright. But you will see plenty of him when you go to the schools with me, and indeed he comes here a great deal, quite as much as he did before that happened. He is so good, Florence. Poor man. I can't in the least make out from his manner whether he has given up thinking about it. I suppose he has. Indeed, of course he has, because he must know that it would be of no use. But he is one of those men of whom you can never say whether they are happy or not. You can never quite be sure what may be in his mind. You're thinking about what's on his mind, are you? He's not bound to the place at all, not like your father? Oh, no, said Fanny, thinking perhaps that Mr. Saul might find himself to be bound to the place, though not exactly with the bonds similar to those which kept her father there. If he found himself unhappy, he could go, said Florence. Oh, yes, he could go if he were unhappy, said Fanny. That is, he could go if he pleased. Lady Clavering had come to the wedding, so someone from the big house did come. But no one else had been present from the great house. Sir Hugh, indeed, was not at home, but as the rector truly observed, he might have been at home as he so pleased. But he is a man, said the father to the son, who always does a rude thing if it is in his power. For myself, I care nothing for him, as he knows. But he thinks that Mary would have liked to have seen him as the head of the family, and therefore he does not come. He has a greater skill at making himself odious than any man I ever knew. As for her, they say he's leading her terrible life, her meaning Lady Clavering. And he's becoming stingy about money, too. I hear that Archie is very heavy on him. Archie is Hugh's brother, and we haven't met him yet. We've just heard about him. I don't believe that any man would allow any man to be heavy on him, as you call it. Archie has means of his own, and I suppose has not run through them yet. If Hugh had advanced him money, you may be sure that he has security. As for Archie, he will come to an end very soon, if what I hear is true. They tell me he is always at Newmarket, and that he always loses. In other words, he's betting. But though Sir Hugh was thus uncourteous to the rector and to the rector's daughter, he was so far prepared to be civil to his cousin Harry, that he allowed his wife to ask all the Rectory family to dine up at the house in honor of Harry's sweetheart. Florence Burton was specially invited with Lady Clavering's sweetest smile. Florence, of course, referred the matter to her hostess, but it was decided that they should all accept the invitation. It was given, personally, after the breakfast, and it is not always easy to decline an invitation so given. So it wasn't written. It wasn't put in a card and sent over, where you could ponder it or let it go or write a polite decline. Instead, it was done personally. You caught them at the wedding. It may, I think, be doubted whether any man or woman has a right to give an invitation in this way, and whether all invitations should not be null and void, from the fact that the unfair advantage has been taken. A person can't say no to your face if you find them at a wedding. The man who fires at a sitting bird is known to be no sportsman. Now, the dinner giver who catches his guest at an unguarded moment and bags him when he has had no chance to rise above his wing does fire at a sitting bird. Upon this instance, however, Lady Clavering's little speeches were made only to Mrs. Clavering and to Florence. She said nothing personally to the rector, and he therefore might have escaped, but his wife talked him over. I think you should go for Harry's sake, said Mrs. Clavering. I don't see what good it would do Harry. It will show that you approve of the match. I don't approve or disapprove of it. He's his own master. But you do approve, you know, as you countenance it, and there cannot possibly be a sweeter girl than Florence Burton. We all like her, and I'm sure you seem to have taken to her thoroughly. Take to her, yes, I take to her very well. She's ladylike, and though she's no beauty, she looks pretty and is spirited, and I dare say she's clever. And so good. If she's good, that's better than all. Only I don't see what they're to live on. Well, but as she's here, you will go with us to the great house? Mrs. Clavering never asked her husband anything in vain. He doesn't refuse her anything. And the rector agreed to go. He apologized for this afterwards to his son by explaining that he did it as a duty. It will serve for 6 months, he said. If I do not go there about once in 6 months, there would be supposed to be a family quarrel, and that would be bad for the parish. Harry was to remain only a week at Clavering, and the dinner was to take place the evening before he went away. On that morning he walked round the park with Florence, just as he had done before with Julia, and took that occasion of giving her a full history of the Clavering family. We none of us like my cousin Hugh, he had said, but she is at least harmless, and again, that's Hugh's wife, Hermione, and she means to be good-natured. She is very unlike her sister, Lady Ongar. So I should suppose, from what you've told me. Altogether an inferior being. And she has only one child? Only one, a boy, now 2 years old. They say he's anything but strong. And Sir Hugh has one brother? Yes, Archie Clavering. I think Archie is a worse fellow even than Hugh. He makes more attempts to be agreeable, but there's something in his eye which I always distrust. And then he is a man who does no good in the world to anybody. He's not married? No, he's not married, and I don't suppose he ever will marry. It's on the card, Florence, that the future baronet may be. Then she frowned on him, walked on quickly, and changed the conversation. But we now know what Harry's thinking. And once again, we have heard about Archie Clavering, but we have not met him. That will be fixed in the next chapter. This is a literary device called foreshadowing. Just a bit of foreshadowing. Usually it's done for an important character. Archie Clavering is not all that important a character, but we'll see a lot of him, so we'll meet him in the next chapter. If certain someone can stop yawning at my reading prowess. So we'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.